This is not what we would do in the 2026 NFL draft. This is what teams are actually going to do tomorrow in the first round of the NFL draft as we give you the final mock draft before the real thing actually happens tomorrow. And we are not wasting any time as I am kicking it to my man Joe for the number 1 overall pick, and the Las Vegas Raiders are on the clock.
If anyone is surprised by what I'm about to pick here, you haven't been paying attention. The Raiders offseason was fantastic. They got the linebacker problem figured out. I like the offensive line the way it looks right now. I think they will still address a little bit of that offensive line, specifically the tackle position later in the draft. Wide receiver, I think they have a good core of young guys, probably pick up another one later in the draft. But this pick right here is the easiest pick of the draft. Everyone knows it's coming, and yet it will still take the full 7 minutes or whatever it is they're down to on draft night, like it's some sort of secret or something else. We all know what it's going to be, and yet they'll still drag it out, and it will be Fernando Mendoza, number 1 overall to the Raiders.
Yeah, we all know what it's going to be, Joe, and this is something that we've known basically since the Raiders got the number 1 overall pick, and Mendoza is going to be a Raider, and it's going to be exciting. Now, this is when the draft really starts, gentlemen. It's at number 2 overall with the New York Jets, and personally, if I'm the Jets here, I would pick Arvell Reese because I think he's the most talented player on the board, and I think he fits their needs the most. But even though the New York Jets canceled their top 30 visit with this player, it sounds like I think they're going to go with edge rusher David Bailey at 2nd overall. I said it in our Draft Chaos video. Don't be surprised if you hear Jeremiah Love called 2nd overall for the New York Jets, because the Jets always seem to do God knows what with whatever selections that they have. But a defensive coach like Aaron Glenn, I think they're going to go with the safest pass rusher on the board. I think they're going to go with David Bailey out of Texas Tech with the 2nd overall pick, Sammy.
Yeah, that would be the wrong player, obviously, because it's obvious who the real edge one is. But again, semantics, agendas. That's what we're doing here. And speaking of agendas, I have none for the Cardinals. However, I do want to help them. So the Cardinals need a bunch of things, really. They need tackle. They need defensive linemen. I'll be honest. I think you can find better right tackles down the line, which is what they really need, a right tackle. Since the Jets passed up on Arvell Reese because they're stupid, I am going to go ahead and gonna pick them up right there, because Arvell Reese, in my opinion, hands down the best linebacker. Well, outside of Sonny Styles, hands down the best linebacker in this draft class. He's a no-brainer to me. I think he's gonna change hopefully he changes the dynamic in that linebacker room, and hopefully he's not another Isaiah Simmons, if you know what I'm saying. So yeah, I can't believe Isaiah Simmons didn't pan out. If you guys remember, he was supposed to be that guy. But Arvell Reese, I am sure of Arvell Reese. I'm sure of him. He's going to be a stud for the Cardinals, and he's going to change everything for that defense, hopefully.
Fingers crossed. I mean, it's a great pick. That linebacker core for Ohio State is insane. So now the Titans are on the clock. Here we go. And this was a hard one because the Titans, according to ESPN, their primary needs are edge, wide receiver, and center. For PFF, their needs are running back, center, guard, edge, and linebacker. So pretty much they need the entire team. Any place they could get talent, that's what they need. Obviously, Jeremiah Love is sitting there staring me in my face right now, right? Does he help Cam Ward? I think he does. I think that you have a great chance there. However, getting your quarterback who you've decided is your franchise a running back as his primary weapon is usually not the number one thing you want to worry about here. I don't think they go Jeremiah Love here. I think they go Carnell Tate is going to come into Tennessee. He is going to be Cam Ward's number 1 wide receiver, and they're going to feel really, really good about this pairing. They're going to feel this pairing is the Jackson Dart, Malik Neighbors pairing, that this pairing is the A.J. Brown, Drake May pairing. We're going to find out June 1st about the Tennessee Titans. Go and get their wide receiver 1, Carnell Tate. You're a Titan.
So, Joe, you just made my job a whole hell of a lot harder here for the Giants because, again, I'm not picking how I would pick as the Giants. To me, my pick here would be pretty clear. If I'm the New York Giants, I would go with one of these Ohio State defensive players, either Sonny Styles or I would go with Caleb Downs, because I think those are 2 of the safest picks on the board. And for a team like the Giants, who needs more talent on the defensive side of the ball, especially after they just traded Dexter Lawrence, I think those would both be really good picks. But we've seen Jeremiah Love heavily linked to the New York Giants. And again, this is not a move that I would make because I have, we already have, if I'm the Giants, we have Cam Scatterbo, we have Tyrone Tracy, we have Jackson Dart as a mobile quarterback as well. The running game is already going to be really, really good if you're the New York Giants. However, again, we've seen this linked a lot already pre-draft, and the fact that Jeremiah Love is still there, I think the New York Giants at 5th overall, if he makes it to them, I think the Giants are going to go with Jeremiah Love. Even though I personally believe it's the wrong pick, I think the Giants will pick Jeremiah Love 5th overall in this NFL draft.
Wow. I really thought that we were about to go 3 straight Buckeyes. I thought Arvell Reese, Carnell Tate, Sonny Styles. I thought that was going to be the 3, 4, and 5 because you wanted that generational linebacker in New York.
I would. That's where I would go if I was the Giants. But again, I'm not the Giants. The Giants are the Giants, and I think the Giants, if Jeremiah Love slides to 5, I think they're gonna not. I think they're just gonna pull the trigger and say, let's go get the best player in the draft. In our opinion,
I do truly think that the Browns need a wide receiver. I'm gonna go with Mekhi Lemon as my 6th overall pick to save the Cleveland Browns franchise along with Shedeur Sanders.
That is insane. That is a wild pick. I'm surprised 2 wide receivers go top 10 like this. This is going to be this class. I mean, I think there's good wide receivers here, but I didn't think any wide receiver out of Carnell Tate would go top 10. But the Browns are the Browns, and I do think that they're trying to get weapons for their young quarterbacks. So it makes sense. So I guess that's me now with the Commanders. Once again, this one's kind of funny because they have wide receiver, cornerback, and center listed for ESPN, and running back, wide receiver, defensive line, and safety listed for PFF. And I was hoping that Jeremiah Love would be here because I thought that was a home run pick. But Matt had to go and throw a monkey wrench after I threw a monkey wrench at him. So it's just fair. So looking at what the Commanders need, they have their quarterback. I think the top 2 wide receivers clearly off the board. They're not reaching for a third. I don't think they need Reuben Bain. They don't really need a tackle. So it really comes down to Caleb Downs, Mansour Delane, and Dylan Thieneman to me. And it goes to what they think they need the most. And does Caleb Downs scratch the itch, or does Mansour Delane scratch the itch for them? And I think, to me, a sure lockdown corner like Mansour Delane makes more sense. And therefore, the Washington Commanders are going to take Mansour Delane as their number 7th pick.
I really like that pick, Joe. And the Commanders, as we saw last season, need a whole hell of a lot of defense. I personally, if I was the Commanders, this is my Commanders scenario here. I think this is their dream scenario. Bobby Wagner's still a free agent. I would sign Bobby Wagner, and then if Sonny Styles is still there at 7, I would draft Sonny Styles too. And then you could just have Bobby Wagner and Sonny Styles man that linebacker core. You could have Wagner mentor Styles, and then it's like Styles is like you can't possibly miss with Sonny Styles at that point because of his talent. And then you're getting mentored by Bobby Wagner. That's what I would do if I'm the Commanders. However, again, I'm not the Commanders. I am now the New Orleans Saints with the 8th overall pick, and the New Orleans Saints also need a linebacker. Now, if one of these 2 wide receivers is on the board, if Carnell Tate is on the board, if Mekhi Lemon is on the board, I think I'm picking them over Sonny Styles just because, again, I have a young quarterback in Tyler Shuck who showed a lot of flashes last year. We only really have one outside weapon in Chris Olave right now. We need another receiver. I would pick one of those guys. However, I'm concerned with the injuries with Jordan Tyson right now if I'm the New Orleans Saints, and I lost Demario Davis this offseason as well if I'm the New Orleans Saints. So if this guy slides down to 8th overall in the draft, I am not going to hesitate. I'm going to sprint to the draft board. I'm going to sprint this pick in. This pick is not going to take me 7 minutes if I'm the New Orleans Saints. I'm picking the linebacker Sonny Styles out of Ohio State if I'm the New Orleans Saints, and I have a franchise linebacker going forward.
Steve Spagnuolo would love a player like Caleb Downs on his roster, man.
Amazing pick.
He would love it. And I made an oath to myself that I would do what's best for this franchise. The Chiefs have had a track record of getting sneaky great pass rushers in the later rounds. So I'm going to do this because I am a man of integrity. Reuben Bain, you are the best player in this draft. I want to make this very clear, okay? I have to take Caleb Downs here.
Well, I do thank you for doing that because it makes this a little easier for me, a little bit easier, right? Because you just got your running back if you're the Giants, right? You got your running back at 5. You want to make sure your offensive line is taken care of. And the Giants right now have a need at guard. It's a little bit of a reach, but you're not going to have a shot at him. You're not going to have a shot at him. You're going to get, I'm going to butcher his name because that's what I do with names like this.
Ioane.
Yeah, Ioane, a guard out of Penn State. You're a New York Giant.
Joe, that's an amazing pick. And I think that's something that the Giants really, really need. It's something that I talked about in our players that could go higher than you think video, where the Giants, again, they have a quarterback who has a hard time protecting himself in Jackson Dart. Jackson Dart has, he likes to run his head into places his head does not need to run into. So again, if you can get him an offensive lineman like Ioane, who in my opinion, he's the best offensive lineman in the draft. Now, again, guard is a little devalued as far as offensive line positions go. But again, if you can get somebody like Ioane to go in there and protect your young first-round pick quarterback, I think that's an outstanding selection. Now, that screwed me over for future selections because I have the Ravens at 14, and that's exactly who I was thinking for the Ravens at 14, but I'm not going to be able to do that for the Ravens at 14. However, now I have the Miami Dolphins at 11th overall. And listen, I could sabotage my boy Sammy right now if I really wanted to. And when you look at the list of Dolphins needs, it is everything besides running back because they have Devon Achane. And if they trade Devon Achane, then their list of needs is everything. So right now, where the Miami Dolphins are at, they should just go with the best available player. And Sammy, I think you're going to like my selection because he is going to stay in Miami. The University of Miami star, Ruben Bain, will be with the Miami Dolphins next year, as the Dolphins are going to say, Bain's the best player on the board. Let's go get him at 11th overall, and Ruben Bain will stay in Miami as a Dolphin.
Man,
You just made him the happiest guy in the world. His jersey's on order already.
My goodness. You see, it all worked out. It all worked out in the end, did it, Ruben? You don't get to move a damn anywhere. You don't get to move anywhere. This does make my next pick a little bit more difficult, though, because the Cowboys are in some deep waters when it comes to their front seven and their secondary. But what I'm going to say is that I do think that they've had a major discrepancy at linebacker. They've tried mixing in some experiments here and there. I do think they need a sure thing. Now, I don't know if this is a complete sure thing, but I do like this player. I think the Cowboys are going to select linebacker C.J. Allen to help round out that defense. C.J. Allen, you are on your way to Dallas, and I have a feeling I messed up a pick for one of these people here, so I'm very happy.
I have the Cowboys at 20. You messed that up for me. Yeah. Jeez, man.
It's all good. I mean, honestly, when we're on to the Rams now, and you have an aging quarterback who's primarily a pocket passer. So what you want to do is you want to go get the best tackle in the draft, which is a need that is common there. You're going to get the best tackle in the draft, and you're going to make another run at the Super Bowl right here. And so you're going to get Sammy's boy. I'm going to let him say his name because I know Sammy wants to say his name. Sammy, the Rams select with the 13th pick, tackle Miami. Take it away, brother.
Maui Noah! Come home. Well, you're not home. You're in LA, but whatever.
And that'll be an amazing pick for the Rams because, like you mentioned, they have a need in the future at tackle, and Maui Noah can just basically slide right in. And again, you can protect the MVP quarterback in Matthew Stafford and immediately compete for a Super Bowl if you're Maui Noah, and that's a home run pick for the Los Angeles Rams. Now I'm going to the Baltimore Ravens, and like I mentioned, Joe completely screwed me on this pick. Okay, I was going to pick Vega Ioane with the 14th overall pick. It's like, oh, no one's going to pick a guard before 14, and they really need a guard, but sure enough, he's gone. Okay, so now I need to still address offensive line because offensive line was not good last year. Again, they lost center Tyler Linderbaum as well in the offseason in free agency. So to me, I think I'm going to go with the best offensive lineman available who can slide inside if needed, and that is Spencer Fano, the tackle, or he could play guard out of the University of Utah. I think he would be a good fit in that Ravens offense. And again, we've seen Lamar Jackson have injury concerns as well. He's had injury issues. He's, ran around a little bit too much and got himself hurt sometimes. I think bringing in somebody like Fano will help protect Lamar Jackson and keep him healthier longer for the season. So I think the Ravens go Fano at 14th overall.
For me, I thought you were going to go Jordan Tyson. I really did.
I think that would be, I honestly think the Giants are going to go Jordan Tyson at 10 in this draft. But I think Tyson, to me, again, I just don't think the Ravens throw the ball enough to justify another first-round receiver. Again, Zay Flowers was a first-round receiver a couple years ago. And again, they don't even give him the ball all that much. He had a solid year last year, but again, he doesn't get the ball all that much in the Ravens offense either. So I think they're going to justify an offensive lineman before they justify another weapon for Lamar in terms of this draft.
It's a possibility. I like it.
Yeah, As far as that pick goes, I will say that it is very Ravens coded to say we still need receivers, and they drafted a receiver in the first round. But I do think that ultimately you kind of just need to you do need to protect Lamar eventually. I have Tampa. I'm not going to lie. I thought I didn't have Tampa. I thought I had the Jets. I was going to do something devious, but this actually works out. I think the Tampa Bay Buccaneers need some juice at the tight end position. And I think that Kenyon Sadiq is the home run pick here. They have suitable blocking tight ends on the roster already. So Kenyon Sadiq can kind of play like sort of like in the slot role if you want a Travis Kelce role, maybe. I also think since Chris Godwin is on his later years that the targets will be going to Sadiq and Ibuka more and more. This might be a hot take. I expect Kenyon Sadiq to be one of the most targeted tight ends in the entire league. I think Baker's going to love this guy. So Kenyon Sadiq is going to be a Tampa Bay Buccaneer.
I love the pick. I thought, honestly, the Chiefs would take him just to get him into that offense, just to get another tight end. Because I've said it multiple years. The Chiefs offense flows through the tight end position, right? And you start to see it sort of fall apart now that Kelsey's losing a step a little bit. Getting a player like Kenyon Sadiq there with the burst, with the speed and the things he can do, finding soft spots in zone, I thought that would be a great pick for him. But the Chiefs' loss is the Bucs' gain here. And I actually have to thank you, Matt, for not taking Jordan Tyson for the Baltimore Ravens and going tackle, because that means the New York Jets are going to take the best player at a position of need. They're drafting Jordan Tyson, and I think that pairing him with Garrett Wilson immediately makes that wide receiver core better. I think the offense is significantly better there. Granted, Geno Smith is your quarterback. How much of the stuff that happened in Las Vegas was him and not Chip Kelly? And, we've always had the character issues of him flipping off fans in Las Vegas, as well as getting in locker room fights as a New York Jet. So we'll see how all that works out. But you have a very talented duo in the wide receiver core now.
Yeah, this is an extremely talented duo. And again, you kind of look through this Jets roster now. If they draft Jordan Tyson, again, you got a solid running back in Breece Hall. You got two solid receivers. The offensive line isn't bad. We've seen what Geno Smith can do when he has a decent offensive line. Now it's going to come down to the offensive coordinator. It's going to come down to all these other things involving the Jets, all this other BS that normally surrounds the Jets. But again, you look at the personnel, it's not bad. This is not bad offensive personnel if they can bring in Jordan Tyson and they have a really solid wide receiver core and a nice wide receiver duo, like you mentioned, with these guys. But I know for me, I got the 17th overall pick in this draft, and I'm going to the Detroit Lions, who need a tackle very, very badly. Taylor Decker just left. They need a left tackle of the future. Now, I know a lot of people are very high on Monroe Freeling, the left tackle from Georgia. I am not very high on Monroe Freeling, the left tackle from Georgia. I think he's more of a developmental project tackle. I think the Lions need someone who's a little bit more pro-ready. I don't know if Caleb Proctor, the tackle out of Alabama, is more pro-ready, but I think he has more higher upside than Monroe Freeling. And I know how high people are on Caleb Proctor as well. We've heard Caleb Proctor linked to the Browns as early as 6th overall in this NFL draft because of the level of talent he has. Again, you watch Caleb Proctor highlights. Alabama was throwing him slip screens. That's how athletic and talented this left tackle out of Alabama, Caleb Proctor, is. For now going to be the Detroit Lions, I think they are going to pick Caleb Proctor, the left tackle out of Alabama, with the 17th overall pick.
Yeah, I mean, this guy, Caden Proctor, is really shot up draft boards the more and more I see draft day coming. But I think that this is the Minnesota Vikings, with Harrison Smith retiring. I think it's very apropos that they go with their successor. This is a very easy pick for me. Dylan Thieneman out of Oregon. Some argue he is not that far off from Caleb Downs. Some might argue, but
some would argue that.
Some might argue.
Some people.
I don't think of him that highly. However, Dylan Thieneman, I feel like
point fingers.
The perfect successor for Harrison Smith. I think Brian Flores is going to do so many things with this kind of weapon at safety. So I'm excited to see what he does if he does get drafted by the Minnesota Vikings.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, I'm a big fan of Thieneman. I think that a lot of people think he's got tackling problems. His one bad year of tackling was in 2024 when he was with Purdue. It was just a bad defense. He got put in a lot of bad situations. But if you watched him last year, you watched him in 2023, you see the kind of player he is. He's a great safety. And I am the guy that Sammy is talking about who believes that there's not that big of a gap between him and Caleb Downs. I think Caleb Downs has all of the intelligence and the football IQ. I think Dylan Thielen combines the football IQ with the athleticism. I think he's just a better athlete than Caleb Downs is from the safety position. But we're going to move on to the Carolina Panthers. And the Carolina Panthers have a predicament. According to ESPN, they need a safety and they need a wide receiver. Well, you either have Emmanuel McNeil-Warren as a safety, or you go off of what PFF says you need, which is a wide receiver, tight end, center, and defensive interior, which opens up things a little bit more for you here, where you can look at Omar Cooper Jr. out of Indiana. You can look at, some of these other guys. Caden McDonald out of Ohio State is probably the top-rated defensive tackle in this draft. Where do the Panthers go? And I think you saw last year, your quarterback played well enough with what he had. You already drafted a wide receiver in the first round last year. Do you really need to go get another one? I think that if Jordan Tyson was still on the board, I would probably go get one. That's not what I'm going to do here. I think that when you look at what they did defensively, they need a leader on that defense. They need someone to kind of help that defense stand tall. McNeil-Warren out of Toledo. You are a Carolina Panther.
Yeah, I think that's a good pick for the Panthers defense. Again, like you mentioned, we saw some flashes from Bryce Young last year, but like you also mentioned, it's hard to justify. Again, this would be if they picked Omar Cooper here, this would actually be their third straight year taking a wide receiver in round one, because they picked Leggett the year before. Obviously, that didn't work out, or hasn't worked out so far. Not to give up on Xavier Leggett, but it hasn't worked out so far. Obviously, Teteroa McMillan has worked out so far. I think Omar Cooper Jr. would be a good fit in that offense, just because he's more of a slot. He's going to make those tough contested catches. He's really good with yards after the catch. I think it would be a good fit in their offense, but like you mentioned, they do need safety help as well, and Emmanuel McNeil-Warren is a really good pick. Now, Sammy screwed me over with the Cowboys at 20, because I already have a bold prediction on record that they're going to, in terms of the big board-ish, they're going to reach, and I think they would grab Anthony Hill Jr., the linebacker out of Texas here, but they already grabbed the linebacker in CJ Allen, so they're not going to pick linebacker in the first round. That's simply just not going to happen. Maybe they do. They're the Cowboys. Who knows? But I don't think that's going to happen. I think they're going to pick something different, and now I have to scroll down the board and find somebody for them to pick. And I think it's going to be, they need defensive line. They need defense. The Cowboys offense is good. Okay. The Cowboys have a really, really good offense. They are the Bengals. They're not really East. I guess they're South in Texas, but they play in the NFC East. They're the Bengals in the NFC East is what the Cowboys are. They need defense really, really badly. They need defensive line really badly. You get Quinnen Williams on the interior of that defense. I think pairing him with another really good defensive tackle would make this Cowboys defense a lot better right away. I'm going to go with the defensive tackle out of Ohio State. I'm going with Caden McDonald at 20th overall for the Cowboys. You beef up your front seven with CJ Allen and Caden McDonald in the first round. I think Cowboys fans got to be satisfied with that, because their defense is going to be a lot better in 2026.
That's a great pick, man. When I look at the Steelers, and I'm thinking of doing the most diabolical thing here and picking a quarterback, but I am not messed up. I am a man of integrity, and I'm a man that knows that the Steelers are trying to compete to win now. My understanding is that they did trade for Michael Pittman. One would assume, hey, that wide receiving room is completely round out, right? I'm of the mind that it could use another tweak. So I think that they're going to make a big decision here, and they're going to go wide receiver again, and they're going to go with Omar Cooper Jr. to play in that lot. I think look, man, Mike McCarthy in his press conference was practically describing Omar Cooper. So if he doesn't pick him here, I'm not even joking. If Omar Cooper is still available and he doesn't pick Omar Cooper, I will be tremendously shocked. I don't know I can't remember the last time the Steelers picked a receiver on the first round. It must have been a while ago, but that is my pick. I am picking Omar Cooper Jr.
Not a bad pick. I think that when you start to look at what's going on with this draft, the Chargers here would trade. All the wide receivers are off the board. The best guard in the draft's off the board. All the best safeties are off the board, and you're reaching for a defensive tackle. Like, you're going back down to Caleb Banks, Peter Woods. So you're talking about drafting second round talent at the defensive tackle position, 10 picks in before that, their point where they'd be relevant. I don't like that very much. This is one of those things where you kind of take the best player on the board. And right now, the best player on the board is Monroe Freeland right now, according to PFF. I don't think that that's a good pick, because you have tackles. Like, you need guards, you need centers. Your other option is, how good did you trust your corners last year? You could go Avion Terrell out of Clemson. You could go Jermod McCoy out of Tennessee. Granted, McCoy was injured last year. This is a trade scenario for me We didn't discuss whether or not we were doing trades in this draft, but this is by far, hands down, a trade scenario right now. And I'm looking at the board and I'm trying to figure out who would want to move up that would feel that they would get their player.
Can I do a trade? Would you like to do a trade? So, Sammy, this is what we talked about. This is what we talked about in our Draft Chaos video.
Yeah.
I think the New York Jets are going to say, we've had 2 first-round picks. Okay, we've got our edge rusher of the future in David Bailey. We've got our wide receiver 2 in Jordan Tyson. Okay, we've seen this guy slide down the board a little bit. He's down to 22. In my prediction, I had him at 23, but this will work as well. I think the New York Jets are going to trade up to 22nd overall. They're going to do exactly what the New York Giants did last year with Jackson Dart. They're going to see Ty Simpson is still on the board, and Ty Simpson is going to become a New York Jet. I think the Jets trade up to 22nd or 23rd overall because I think they think there's a possibility that the Cleveland Browns at 24 say, hey, we don't really believe in Shedeur Sanders all that much, Dylan Gabriel, whatever. We got Deshaun Watson off 2 Achilles and all the other BS that he's got going on. Maybe they draft a quarterback there. We don't want to take any chances. We want to give our fan base something to be excited about. 3 first-round picks, one of them being the quarterback of the future. I think the New York Jets would trade up with the Los Angeles Chargers and take Ty Simpson here.
I think that's a great trade.
What do you think the trade would look like overall? Just like straight up like pick for pick, or?
So the Jets have the 33rd overall pick. They'd have to give some additional compensation later in this draft, probably the 33rd, early 4th, maybe, and another pick in 2027, I think.
Next
would probably
year,
get it done.
Or something like that.
Yeah, we get it done. It wouldn't be a lot of draft capital. They're not sacrificing anything crazy for this right now. They would still, I believe, have their first picks for next year because I think they traded players for the picks they got, or the extra pick they got. I think that was the Sauce Gardner trade. So I think that's a good trade. It gets them everything they need. They get another wide receiver. They have the new edge, right? They get the things they need, and this draft is just open for them from here on out. So that's what I think that's what that would look like. I'm going to let you pick for the Eagles as well, Matt, because that was a trade to allow you to do what you needed to do, and take it from here, brother.
Yep, I got the Eagles here, and to me, this one is pretty simple for me. And honestly, the Eagles could use a receiver because it sounds like they're trading AJ Brown to the Patriots. Obviously, nothing's official until it actually happens, but that's what the rumor is. Sounds like he's going to New England, so they could use a receiver here. I personally don't like that for Philadelphia. I think they either need to go defense because they lost Jalen Phillips, so I think an edge rusher would be good here. I also think secondary or maybe a safety, if one of those safeties slid, would be good here. Either a Thieneman or McNeil Warren because they lost Reed Blankenship this offseason as well. However, I think the best pick for them is a Lane Johnson replacement, or a Lane Johnson, someone to replace Lane Johnson. And the fact that this guy's still here, again, with his amount of talent, again, I think he's a project. So I think this is the right system for him to go to. I think Monroe Freeling, even though he's more of a left tackle, I think picking him here, moving him over to the left side, and then, having him transition and learn behind Lane Johnson is the best pick the Philadelphia Eagles could make here. So I think Monroe Freeling is going to be a Philadelphia Eagle here at 23rd overall.
That's a great pick, especially considering where the Eagles are at this point. Ladies and gentlemen, the Browns are the Browns. And I understand that I did say that drafting a tackle in CeCe Maui Noah would be redundant. However, I said drafting Maui Noah would be redundant. I never said drafting a tackle at all would be redundant. I do think that they do need a plan at tackle for the future. And with that being said, there's a plethora of late round tackles that I really like, that I really think that the Browns should swing for. Blake Miller out of Clemson, Max Ihenacho. I think I don't like butchering names of Max Ihenacho. Both of these picks are awesome. Matt introduced me to this kid, Max. I'm going to just say his first name, Max. I avoid anything. And I saw his tape, and let me tell you, I really, really like it. But we're the Browns. So we're going to take the one that's higher on the board. We're going to take Blake Miller out of Clemson to help build up the trenches for the future.
It's a solid pick. I actually like Blake Miller a little better than I do Ihenacho there. It's just, I do think that Max is going to be a great tackle in the NFL. I like this pick a little better. But we're on to the Bears. And the Bears have some needs. So center is one of them. That's going to be addressed later in the draft. I already have an idea who they're going to pick for that. Defensive line, I think they could use people across the defensive line entirely, right? I think they need some help there. And with that being said, that's where I'm going to focus this pick. And I think that this is where the second Miami Hurricane edge defender comes off the board. Akeem Mesidor is going to be that guy for the Chicago Bears, and they are going to take him at 25 on a steal. according to the big board. He was ranked 20 average draft position, 21.1. He is going to the Bears at 25.
I like that pick for the Bears. Obviously, they struggled a lot last season, and the concern that a lot of people have, they struggled a lot on defense last year, the Bears did. A concern people have with Mesidor is he's already 25, and again, 25 isn't like ancient, but if you're coming into the NFL, 25 does mean, there's a few prime years there, a few of your early years that you don't get, but it means he's more NFL ready. He's more ready to contribute right away, and I think the Bears do need a defender that's ready to contribute right away. Speaking of a team that needs defenders to contribute right away, that is the Buffalo Bills. Again, the Bills we've seen struggle with defense in previous years. I think they need a lot of help on defense. They could use a defensive lineman. They could use a linebacker. They could use a safety. I don't think Matt Milano is coming back to this linebacker core. I think they need a new lead linebacker, someone who's going to captain that defense, somebody who is good at everything at the linebacker position. Again, according to PFF, this might be a little bit of a reach. He's 45 on their board. I don't think in terms of football players, this is a reach at all because he is one of the best pure football players in this entire draft. I think the Buffalo Bills are going to go out and get Jacob Rodriguez, the linebacker out of Texas Tech with the 26th overall pick. And it is going to maybe not dramatically transform their defense, but it's going to be a big, big addition to this defense because he knows how to do every single thing well on the football field from a linebacker position.
Wow. Some might say that's a reach. I personally think it's a great pick. I've liked Jacob Rodriguez ever since the first week at Texas Tech. He's looked phenomenal. Anyway, the San Francisco 49ers. There was a quote one time where Kyle Shanahan said that, we don't really need to focus on the offensive line because, our offense is very potent. No more of that. Okay. Your offensive line has been bad for a long, long time. Enough is enough. Max Einaker, you are going to be the tackle for the 49ers. A lot of mock drafts have Caleb Lomu getting selected here. I wouldn't be mad at that pick either, but I personally like Max here. So Max, you're going to be going to San Francisco. Not that far off from Arizona. So
absolutely not. Great pick. I like that pick. So here we go. The Texans are on the clock. They had no shot at a top tier running back. Centers later, the best guards off the board, but you were in prime condition for the top tier remaining defensive interior linemen here, and that's Caleb Banks and Peter Woods. And I think you have to look at both of them and understand who they are as players. I think that you look at Woods, I think he fits a more forefront. He's a 6'3", 310. Caleb Banks, that man is a nose tackle, and I don't think that he fits what they're looking for there. They could go for a Christian Miller out of Georgia if they like him a little better. He's a bit bigger. He's got a pretty good first step, played on a little bit better team. Peter Woods, I think, had a down year this year. I think Christian Miller is the better all-around player, and they're going to take Christian Miller on, some would say, a reach. PFF Big Board 37. But I think Christian Miller is better than what we saw from Caleb Banks in limited tape, especially with the foot injury coming out there. He's probably going to drop, and I think Peter Woods probably isn't the pick for them. I like Christian Miller.
Yeah, that's an interesting pick. I think if I was the Texans there, I would take a shot on upside, and Peter Woods is just so talented. He's such a freak of nature. Even Caleb Banks, I wouldn't want Caleb Banks as much because he has a few more injury concerns than Woods, but I think I would take Peter Woods there just because he's got such high upside. And then you got those two edge rushers on the edge with Hunter and Anderson. Anderson, who just got freaking $140 million guaranteed or whatever he just got. Shout out to Will Anderson for getting your money. But I think if Peter Woods went in there, you might already have the best pass rush in football. Then you solidify it. So I wouldn't be mad at that. But again, Miller's not a bad pick either. I think Miller's probably the safest pick there on the board if you're the Houston Texans. However, I am now the Kansas City Chiefs. And if I am the Kansas City Chiefs, I am in a beautiful spot because PFF says receiver. I don't think the Chiefs are going receiver here. I think they're okay on receiver. And they either need edge or cornerback. They have Caleb Downs. So you see a cornerback on the board like Jermon McCoy, who's really, really talented with injury concerns. I don't think they're going to go with him because I think they're confident in their ability to develop the cornerback position in-house. I think they'll maybe pick a corner later in the draft and feel confident they can develop him. Now, something they might not be as confident in is developing edge rushers, and someone that might need a little bit of a development but is very, very talented is the edge out of Auburn. That is Keldrick Falk. He didn't put up huge numbers last year, but he is a super talented edge rusher. I think you put him, you get Caleb Downs, and you get Keldrick Falk in the first round if you are the Kansas City Chiefs. I think the Chiefs organization, I think Chiefs fans, Patrick Mahomes, everybody involved with the Chiefs has to be ecstatic with that first round if you're the Kansas City Chiefs. So I think they're going to pick Keldrick Falk, the edge out of Auburn.
Yeah, you know what? If I'm the Kansas City Chiefs, I'm throwing a parade, let me tell you, because it's been a while since they've had that much talent in the first round because, they've been so successful I'm very jealous. The team that I'm about to pick has been anything but successful. These frauds, my goodness, why do I even support this team? Anyway, the Miami Dolphins, and they are also in a great spot, except Miami Dolphins fans don't have the luxury of having Patrick Mahomes. They have Malik Willis, and because of that, their morale, unlike the Chiefs, is relatively low. The Miami Dolphins need a corner bad. They have some options, man, but Jermon McCoy, I understand he has injury concerns. I do. There's a lot of upside with him. And plus, you have some room because you're rebuilding. So you can develop him. You don't have to rush anything, okay? Anyway, so this is an easy pick, in my opinion. Jermon McCoy drops all the way to pick number 30. And he is going to help bring the Dolphins back to glory after 50 million years.
There you have it. Jermon McCoy, he is a Dolphin. Now, the Patriots are on the clock, and ESPN said they needed all line, edge, and linebacker. Well, the best linebackers are gone. You have Cassius Howe, TJ Parker are still on the board right now. I think that the value here is probably not as high with these two guys. Howe from a run stop rate, TJ Parker, I think he's a well-rounded edge, but I don't think he's necessarily the right pick here. I think you can get better talent further down the board. So that really brings us in here to defensive tackle position. You're looking for someone to replace Kyrus Tonga. This could be a spot for Caleb Banks if they like what they saw from Caleb Banks from a run-stopping perspective. I actually don't think they go Caleb Banks here. If they're going to go defensive tackle, I think they go with the other guy who the Texans, Matt thought should have picked, in Peter Woods. I think Peter Woods is the option here. If they don't like either of these guys, this is a trade back scenario for them. This really is. I think that if someone wants to jump into the first round and take a player that they're concerned with the Seahawks tanking, specifically if they like TJ Parker a lot, or if they like Avion Terrell a lot, this could be a chance to jump the Seahawks, give the Patriots a little extra draft capital, get one of these guys. I'm not going to assume that's going to happen. I know there's not a lot of people we've looked at in the rest of the time here who we've been like, oh, that team would have loved to have that guy. I know a lot of Patriots fans are going to be upset, like, hey, Casey Concepcion's still on the board. What are you doing? I'm not a big KC fan. I think he's got a lot of things out there, but the catch consistency hurt. I'm not a big fan of that. It had 7 drops. His drop rate was 10.3%. based on his targets. But there's a lot of good things to like about Concepcion. I'm just not a fan of him for this Patriots team and what they need at wide receiver. So I had to pass on that. I went with a solid defender who can help sort of cycle through with Barmore and Milton Williams.
Yeah, I like that pick better for the Patriots, Joe, and especially because it sounds like I mentioned earlier, the Patriots are going to trade for A.J. Brown. So if they not going to say they waste their first round pick on Concepcion, but if they spend a first round pick on Concepcion this year, I'm guessing they're trading next year's first round pick for A.J. Brown. So again, like we were talking about with the Panthers, you spend back-to-back first round picks on wide receivers. It makes sense because you have a young quarterback who needs receiver help. However, again, I don't know if that's the wisest use of your resources if you're the New England Patriots. And I think that's a good pick if you go Peter Woods there, Joe.
Yeah, for me, I was going to go Denzel Boston because he's a big-bodied guy, sort of in that A.J. Brown mold. But if you're getting A.J. Brown, redundant. You don't need Denzel Boston. He's redundant.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no doubt about it. Yeah, and that's kind of the reason we talked about with me and Sammy talked about it with Casey Concepcion. He's kind of redundant with all the other receivers that we have as well, with our Kyle Williams, with our Demario Douglas, with our Efton Chisholm, with guys like that as well. So I don't think a receiver makes much sense. Just the calibers of receivers that we have available in the draft right now, I don't think a receiver makes much sense for New England. I think defensive tackle makes a hell of a lot more sense. But I am going to the team that just absolutely shit on our New England Patriots in the Super Bowl, Joe. That is the Seattle Seahawks. And you look at their positions of need, it's the 3 spots that they lost this offseason. It's running back, they lost Kenneth Walker this offseason. It's edge, they lost Boye Mafe this offseason. And it's defensive back where they lost Tariq Woolen, they lost and Kobe Bryant as well this offseason. So they have some needs that they need to fill because they lost very important pieces to that defense. Now, as far as the running backs go here, I don't think there's one available that is worth a late first round pick. I know there's been a lot of Jadarian Price smoke as far as the Seattle Seahawks go at 32 overall, just because they're in such dire need of a running back. I think that would be a reach for Jadarian Price. We haven't seen him be the lead back yet. Even in his college career, I don't think him going to Seattle and having to be the lead back right away, considering they don't have Zach Charbonnet for the start of the season coming off that ACL. I think that wouldn't be a good, again, it wouldn't be a wise use of the Seahawks resources. I think this has to either be edge or corner, and they are in a great spot for either. You look at the board right now. You got TJ Parker. You got Cassius Hell on the edge. You got Avion Terrell. You got Colton Hood at cornerback. I think there's a lot of really, really good options for the Seattle Seahawks right now. However, I think they're going to go with a really good scheme fit. He's not the top ranked corner on the board right now. He's not the top ranked edge rusher on the board right now, but this guy fits really, really well in that zone Mike McDonald scheme. I think they're going to go with Colton Hood, the cornerback out of Tennessee at 32nd overall, because he is going to fit like a glove in that defense for the Seattle Seahawks. And again, like I mentioned, I think running back would be a reach here. I think you can find edge rushers later in this draft with the Seattle Seahawks as well. This is a very deep edge class. I think Colton Hood is the best fit for the Seattle Seahawks here at 32nd overall. But fellas, that's it. Okay, that's the entire first round. We have gone through the whole thing. That is what's going to happen in the 2026 NFL draft. You can book it. There's not going to be a single pick wrong. We got every single pick right in this draft. You can guarantee it. Go to your local sports book, bet on it. We got every single one of them right. And comment down below how much money you made from our mock draft recommendations, because it is going to happen. We can tell you that for sure right now. Just kidding.
This has been Between the Uprights. Football is life. The rest is just details.